Christmas Eve always had a quiet dignity in our house. Soft lights, Frank Sinatra humming through the speakers, a fire flickering in the corner while the snow tapped gently at the windows. But that year, something hung in the air that didn't belong, something cold that had nothing to do with the weather. My wife, Claire, had gone all out decorating the dining room, candles, pine garlands, even gold-trimmed napkins. She smiled across the table, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked rehearsed, and beside her sat a man I had never seen in our home before. Tailored suit, perfect hair, smug grin. He introduced himself as Mr. Darling, her lawyer and friend. He didn't offer a handshake. We had just finished carving the roast when he reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a folder, red, festive. He slid it across the table with a smirk. "These are the divorce papers," he said, casually sipping his wine. "Everything has already been filled. We just need your signature." Claire didn't look at me. Not once. She stared at her plate, cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment, from anticipation. I didn't ask why. I didn't ask when it started, or with who, or how long she'd been planning this behind my back. I just nodded. Slowly. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. "You already filed?" I asked, calmly. "Of course," Darling replied. "Everything's been arranged. And you're here. Why? To witness me signing. To ensure compliance," he said. Claire wanted to avoid drama. How thoughtful of her. I took the pen he offered and signed every page in silence. My wife finally looked at me, eyes wide, unsure, like she expected something more. Anger, rage, a plea. But all I gave her was stillness. When I slid the folder back to Darling, I reached under the table and retrieved a small black gift box wrapped in dark green ribbon. I placed it gently in front of him. "Merry Christmas," I said. Darling blinked. "Excuse me, it's for you." He glanced at Claire, then opened it with a smirk that quickly twisted into confusion. Inside was a USB drive. Nothing else. No card. No message. "What is this?" "Insurance," I said, my tone even. His fingers gripped the drive. "You threatening me?" "No," I said. "I'm giving you a gift. Use it however you see fit." Claire's fork clinked against her plate. She finally spoke. "What is this, Michael?" "Just something to even the playing field," I said. "You wanted to make this clean. I'm making it fair." Darling stared at me, that smugness draining from his face like spilled wine on white linen. Claire's eyes darted between us, suddenly unsure of the script. For once, they weren't in control. I poured myself a glass of scotch, took a long sip. The warmth hit my chest, but it was nothing compared to the slow burn of quiet revenge. No shouting, no accusations, just a signed paper and the opening move. Months before the Christmas table, the USB gift, I started noticing small things, changes so subtle they almost slipped beneath the radar. Almost. It began with her laugh. Claire had always laughed freely, loud and genuine, especially at my bad jokes. But around September, that laugh changed. It became thinner, polished, the kind of laugh you give when you want someone to feel charming, not when you feel loved. Then came the dinners she started skipping. "Work's crazy," she'd say, grabbing her coat before I could ask more. No kisses on the cheek, no follow-ups, just perfume in the hallway and the click of heels fading down the steps. I wasn't the type to snoop, never had been. But one night, after she'd fallen asleep with her phone clutched in her hand, it buzzed. I didn't mean to look, I swear I didn't. But when your wife starts sleeping with her phone like it's a newborn, curiosity becomes survival. A message from someone saved as D. "Can't wait till it's ours." Just that. Simple. Damning. I didn't wake her. Didn't ask. I just watched her sleep and realized I wasn't looking at my wife anymore. I was looking at someone rehearsing the role of a wife, someone who had already left in every way that mattered. Instead of confronting her, I started listening more and talking less. I let her build her new world, thinking I was still trapped in the old one. She'd come home late with wine on her breath, smiling like she'd just won a game I didn't know I was playing. That was fine. I started collecting things. Receipts, phone records, travel charges to boutique hotels I'd never been invited to, bank statements with withdrawals I hadn't made. Each piece was a puzzle, and the picture was becoming clearer. Claire wasn't just cheating. She was preparing to erase me. Financially, legally, emotionally. I hired a pie named Brennan. Quiet, thorough, expensive. Worth every cent. Within 2 weeks, Brennan had photos. Claire holding hands with a man outside a restaurant downtown, kissing in a parking garage, meeting regularly with the same man in a cafe across from the courthouse. And that man was Darling, the same Mr. Darling who would one day hand me divorce papers across a Christmas table like they were party favors. I should have felt destroyed, but I didn't. What I felt was far colder, precision. Because it wasn't the affair that broke me, it was the math behind it. The plotted timelines, the documents filed before I ever saw them. The way she smiled in those photos, like betrayal, was a relief. They thought I'd be passive. They thought I'd crumble. But I didn't raise my voice. I raised my awareness. And the more I studied Darling, the more cracks I found. The man had secrets. Brennan dug them up like weeds. Past clients who sued him for negligence. A mistress with a nasty credit habit. A gambling problem that had quietly racked up over $200,000 in debt across poker sites and backroom games. But the best part? He'd borrowed money from a small business loan company 2 years ago, one I partially owned through a shell company I'd built during my early investment days. Brennan brought me the paperwork, highlighted the forged details, and smiled. "That's your leverage," he said. And it was. Every act of betrayal had left a fingerprint. Every whisper between Claire and her smug little lawyer left a trail. All I had to do was follow it, quietly, carefully, patiently. So when Christmas came, and they tried to serve me betrayal like dessert after roast beef, I was already 3 moves ahead. I didn't want an argument. I wanted surrender. Christmas morning was always slow in our house, coffee brewing, snow soft against the windows, gifts unwrapped one by one. This year, the only sound was the clink of ice in my glass and the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. They arrived just after 10. Claire walked in first, dressed like she was attending brunch, not getting a marriage. Darling followed, carrying another folder under his arm, smiling like he was the host of some twisted holiday special. "You didn't need to make this difficult," Claire said, voice light. "We can all walk away happy, Michael." I stayed seated in the armchair, scotch in hand, fireplace behind me. Darling cleared his throat. "We're here to finalize. There are a few financial transitions we'd like you to approve." "Claire's entitled to nothing," I said calmly. That froze them. Darling shifted, clearly thrown. "Excuse me." I leaned forward and placed another small box on the coffee table. Black, identical to the one from the night before, wrapped in silver ribbon. "This time for you," I said, gesturing to Darling. He didn't move. Claire frowned. "What is this?" "Your second gift," I said, sipping. "The first was a warning. This one is a promise." Darling hesitated, then opened a box. Inside was a second USB drive, this time labeled in red, "Copy." He looked up at me, and something in his eyes cracked. His fingers trembled. Claire looked between us, confused but sensing something was wrong. You've been spying?" Darling asked, but the question was weak, hollow. "No, you've been leaving evidence," I said. "I just collected it." Claire's voice rose. "What are you talking about?" I stood, walked to the mantel, and picked up a manila envelope. I dropped it next to the box. Signed affidavits from 2 of Darling's former clients. Proof of malpractice, evidence of debt, fraud, and forged filings, including the one you used to file for divorce. Turns out, Mr. Darling here used a false notary stamp. Makes your divorce petition invalid. Darling stepped back like I'd hit him. Claire's face turned pale. "You're lying." I looked her in the eye. "You wanted everything. You got greedy. You wanted the house, the savings, the stocks. You filed first so you could control the narrative, but you used a broken tool to do it." Darling tried to speak, but nothing came out. "You'll fix this," I said, turning to him. "You'll void the filing. You'll disappear from this case. And you'll thank me for not sending that drive to the State Bar and the IRS." He collapsed into the armchair, face in his hands. Claire took a step forward, tears pooling. "Michael, please." "I didn't mean for." I raised a hand. "You meant every part of it. The dinner reservations with him, the meetings, the plans. You just didn't expect me to be watching." Her voice cracked. "What now?" I walked past her and opened the door. Snow was falling again, soft, slow, like a blanket being pulled over the world. "You leave," I said. "Today." She stood there, unmoving. "That's it." I looked back at her. "You left me a long time ago, Claire." I just made it official. Darling stood shakily and followed her out the door, like a man walking to his own funeral. They didn't speak. Didn't look back. I sat again. The room was quiet. Just the fire and the clock and the echo of a marriage that died long before Christmas. 3 days later, Darling was disbarred. Word spread fast in legal circles: fraud, debt, buried ethics violations. Claire called once, voice shaking on the line. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't answer. I just let the silence stretch, then hung up. No revenge speech. No screaming. Just peace. Sometimes the best victory isn't in the destruction. It's in the calm that follows it.